Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang.
Mrs. Wang, are you with us? I see a lot overseas, but I see a story. I can see where this story is going. What's happening?
From Daniels, the people who brought us the Turn Down for What music video, Swiss Army Man, and then Daniel Scheinert, I believe, directed what I believe to be the worst A24 movie of all time, which is The Death of Dick Long. But Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is their latest.
What a mouthful.
Yeah, it's their latest venture, latest creative venture, and it's actually produced by the Russo brothers. If you guys don't know who the Russo brothers are, they directed Avengers Endgame, the best movie of all time. So the concept, right, is that we have this normal sort of Chinese family. They own a laundromat, and they're having tax problems, and they're getting audited by the IRS,
as all laundromat owners do.
Yeah. Well, they like to launder their money a lot.
I want to say out the gate, I actually liked the family. I liked the character dynamic between them. I thought it was really good. It was really relatable, actually, as a first-generation immigrant. Like some of the lost in translation stuff from English to Chinese was relatable. Like some of the generational gap stuff, and the acting was good. It was convincing. I'm really bad with actor names and everything, but Evelyn, the main character, she was really good. Her husband was really good. The daughter was good enough. I have no complaints with the acting. The main problem with this movie, the plot is like almost non-existent, and when it is existent, it doesn't have much to say.
Well, I'll say this. So it has a really good build-up, because the build-up we're seeing, I mean, the opening sequence where it's all the problems at her laundromat, and it's definitely sort of got like this uncut gem style of just like adding on stressor after stressor after stressor after stressor. And then it's all kind of culminating and going to the IRS, which is something that nobody likes to do, which is something that's very stressful for everyone. And they just have all these receipts. And it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know what her character's name in the film is, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis. The fact that Evelyn has all these different universes where she has all these different talents, you know, because she has like a million different hobbies.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns. You can access all of their memories, their emotions, even their skills. There's a great evil spreading throughout the many verses. And you may be your only chance of stopping it.
Don't make me fight you. I am really good.
I don't believe you.
She can connect to a different version of herself in another universe, but she gets like instructions. She has to do something like insane that she wouldn't normally do.
She has to do something absurd.
Yeah, so she has to do something absurd. So some of the things that we see people doing in there is like he has to do a paper cut in between all of his fingers. That's a big one. Profess their love to somebody. He eats
a piece of chapstick as the security comes in, and then he turns into like this kung fu master, because that's the launch point to the alternate universe where he knows all these techniques and stuff. So the whole movie is like it's constantly hitting you with these really absurd, funny gags that the characters are doing to launch into this other universe and access these powers, basically.
Yeah, basically. So, I mean, and obviously that's set up to have a lot of gags, because there's the one gag where for the one guy to get... So a joke in here is that the Best Auditor Award is a butt plug.
Yeah.
And so...
Not so subtle of a joke,
not so subtle. And it sets up because there's another part where for a guy to get... like fighting martial things, he has to basically put the butt plug up his butt.
There's like multiple people fighting for it.
Yeah, and they're trying to get it to shove it up their ass, and And
By the way, that scene, oh my God, the row behind us in the theater, it was like a packed, because it's IMAX showing, row behind us would not stop laughing anytime it's in the scene.
No,
it was kind of funny at first, but like...
no, it was anytime there was any kind of joke whatsoever.
Yeah,
I mean, like some of the jokes, I was chuckling at. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's rich. That's funny.
Oh,
I mean, it was jokes
it was
like
wholesome
that.
jokes too, not just butt plug ones. But.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good jokes, but they're like, yeah, that's good, like that's most of them. They were fine.
Yeah.
But the people behind us and some of the other people in the theater, they're like, and start clapping and just going insane. And oh my gosh, there's a whole scene where they showed 2001: A Space Odyssey, the part with the apes, but the apes have hot dogs for fingers, and people are going insane over it. I'm just like, look, it's kind of a dumb joke, don't it's like a ha-ha, it's like isn't that funny, it's not like just screaming in the theater, oh my gosh, yes, it's stuff like that.
There's three separate acts, but the movie separates it into three parts. It's really two parts and an epilogue, but there is three like pretty clear acts. Act 1 is like setting everything up, introducing you to the mechanics of this parallel multiverse kind of thing, which is cool, which I like. We both like that. There's a lot of like kung fu sci-fi action that's fun to watch.
Yeah.
But the second part kind of, I wouldn't say it drags, but it is sort of like, you already know, like, okay, come on. Like the main character, the mom, in an attempt to save her daughter, who's like this bad guy in the future, because she basically has seen the void, has seen the emptiness, thinks nothing matters, thinks everything is possible, but because everything is possible, nothing matters. She's like this omniscient bad villain. What's the name?
Jockey.
Jobu
Tabaki?
Jobu Tabaki, something like that.
Something like that.
Anyways,
it's some stupid name. I mean,
so
like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Evelyn's daughter, Joy, is the most powerful, omnipotent bad guy. And her mom connects with her, and then in doing so, Jobu shows her this donut, the everything bagel, rather. Not the donut, the everything bagel, that inside of it is just it's like a black hole. It's basically, they say it's bigger than a black hole. It's basically a black hole. And then the Evelyn becomes kind of jaded or conceited, doesn't think anything matters, and then her character acts out in all these different universes that way. Her life starts falling apart, and then her husband basically saves her, which I thought was good. I actually liked that. I like his character and the role he plays, except what I didn't like, skipping a few things. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. You could watch it if you want. But what I don't like is the takeaway message at the end, which is, like you pointed out, it's kind of nihilism, but it's just a different version of nihilism. Instead of responding to the daughter's philosophy, you could say, of nothing matters. The mom's philosophy is more like, well, nothing matters, but that's okay because I like you. And there's no, it's so funny because it's so much more, it would have been so much better, I think, if there was a message, a more positive message. I think a big reason I don't really like this movie is because the philosophy of it is very much like, it's telling you what to think. Like, it's not subtle about it. It's not just leaving it up to interpretation. And the actual message is pretty hollow and like nihilistic in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big problem with the movie, and the reason that I prefer the first half to the second half of the film, I mean, they say that it's in three parts, but basically it's just two parts, because one is everything, and then part two is everywhere, and then all at once is just like a 5-minute epilogue. It's really not that big a part of the movie. But the reason why I like the first half of the film is because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's using this kind of multiverse theory, which I said on Twitter today. I said that I think that the multiverse theory really, because I was looking into it, I was like, is there any actual hard science behind it? And I couldn't find anything that said that there was like hard science behind it. It's been theorized. People think it might happen. But I think that really, when it comes to multiverse theory, especially in movies, is it's really just a way to explore, like, what if a character didn't or made a different decision, you know, and we think about it, you know, in our own lives where we think, I wonder what our reality would be like if, say, I decided not to move to Austin, if I decided to stay in Florida. I wonder what my reality would be like if, I don't know, I decided to eat something different for lunch, you know, like I decided to go out, maybe decided to go to South Lamar or something like that and grab lunch there. And maybe I meet someone and maybe that changes the course of my life. You know, you think about these things. It doesn't necessarily mean that that universe exists. I mean, that takes a big leap of faith to do that, but it can be interesting for fiction. It can be interesting for fiction. And so, you know, mixing that concept of like, she's kind of a loser in our world, but she is master of like all these different things in other worlds. You know, she can kind of look and see what her life would have been like had she gone down certain paths or something like that. It's interesting, right? And I thought that what we're going to take away from that is that every choice is important. And that's kind of how it opens up, right? Every choice is important because it can drastically change the course of your life.
Not just your life, but the lives of everyone in every universe.
Yeah, exactly. The lives of everyone around you. And the first half of the movie, too, doesn't take it seriously. It's using her different life paths to sort of make a goofy but competent kung fu movie. It's in the second half, it gets pretty self-serious about its messaging, and it starts to, there's a lot of exposition throughout the movie, but the exposition in the first half is kind of just setting up the rules of the world, which I don't mind because there are a lot of rules in this world. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as something like Tenet, which spent the entire movie setting up the rules in that world. But I don't mind that. But then in the second half, it really doesn't leave anything to the imagination as regarding to the philosophy of the film.
Yeah, like the scene with the rocks is where they kind of like beat you over the head with it, where it's just like lines of dialogue. I mean, at first it's a funny gag, but
people were laughing way too much at that scene. They were laughing at literally every line because they go to this universe where life didn't like take off, right? So they're just rocks, and
the mother and daughter, Evelyn,
and they're just speaking via like subtitles, basically. And people in our theater thought that was just the funniest thing in the world. And
even aside from our theater, I just think it was the point at which the movie like solidified itself, no pun intended, as to like what the message it's trying to send is, which is like, none of this matters, but hey, you can still have fun, you know? Like,
yeah, and that's basically like she has to choose. There's and it's all pretty kind of obvious, you know, where her daughter is sort of so the movie is just has this assumption that nihilism is basically the only
possible truth.
The only possible truth is nihilism, is the fact that nothing matters. So what she has to choose between is her daughter and her husband. Her daughter, who basically just takes the black pill when she, you know, discovers this truth, and it's just like, well, I found this way to commit suicide in every single universe so I can actually die. And then her husband, who's just like, no matter what happens, you just have to love each other and you just have to be good to each other. But of course, too, the whole like love each other scene where she's going through and like finding ways to love each other, it's also like strange because the director's fetish definitely comes through, because the director has a scene where she loves him, or she shows love to him by spanking him and putting a ball gag in his mouth.
It's like a BDSM scene. Basically.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, I get it. You have a BDSM fetish, dude. I mean, that was the director.
I mean, essentially the message, it comes around where it's like Evelyn saves everyone by fulfilling whatever their desires or fantasies or what they consider love to be. And so in that way, nothing matters because everyone has their own version of it. And so we just have to, make the best of what we have or something like that. Something like very, absurdism is one way of like one philosophy that comes to mind when you describe it. But I think a route they could have gone that I thought would have been way more interesting and just it would have come full circle is that the big bagel, the big void, the black hole, is just kind of like left there and never addressed after the climax of the movie. It would have been more interesting, I think, if Evelyn saved the universes by like either shutting down the black hole or like turning it into something else, or I think a message that makes more sense is like everything matters because even if there's infinite universes, your actions have an impact on potentially infinite parallel universes, and that's like bigger than we could possibly imagine. So everything has a meaning and purpose to it. Like that would have been just as logical or just as reasonable of a conclusion to make from the premises they had.
Yeah, and basically the second half of the film kind of comes down to a question posed to Evelyn, which is, so do you save the day or do you commit suicide? And by saving the day, really she just wants to save her daughter, but her daughter wants her to commit suicide with her because I guess...
Well, it's implied. It's never like explicitly said, but walking into the black hole.
No, she explicitly says it.
Does she say suicide?
Yeah, it's going to kill her in every single universe by walking into that everything donut.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's pretty explicitly said. There's really nothing subtle in this movie. That's a big problem that I have with it, is that at the end you're not thinking, I wonder what that means. It's like if there was anything in this movie that had some sort of meaning, it's sure to tell you.
And also, I think because of its kind of weak philosophy, frankly, the plot is also suffering as a result.
It really drags on the second half.
Yeah, like you already know, by the second act of this, or like midway through the movie, everything about the main villain, everything about their motivations, and it doesn't really leave much to... It's just like, okay, well, how are they going to wrap this up? Rather than like, I wonder where it's going to go next.
Yeah, and it's a whole bunch of just like hollow sayings, like you just have to fight with love and you just have to love one each other. But then they say that, and at the same time, she never says to her daughter that she loves her.
Yeah, okay. A lot of those things could have been forgivable, but the ending dialogue really struck me the wrong way, where there's like this really heart-to-heart moment with Evelyn and her daughter, who are kind of almost estranged for most of the movie. They have this heart-to-heart. They're both crying. There's this genuine moment, and it's good acting too. It's convincing. It's good. And then there's this emotional swell, and in the end, after all these multi-parallel universes, Evelyn just says, I want to be here with you. Like, that's it. I want to be here with you and nothing matters. That she says, I want to be here with you and nothing matters. And it's like, why not just say I love you and that's all that matters? That would have made way more sense. It's like, I don't know who wrote the dialogue, but it seems like it's just coming from not a very good place. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't feel genuine. And the other thing that didn't feel genuine was the fact that when she found out that nothing matters, and one of the ways that she saved the day was telling her dad that her daughter is lesbian and in a relationship with this other girl. And it's like, okay, fine. So she learns to accept, it's kind of on the, it's a through line through the story where she's not accepting of her daughter's gayness. It's not really played up that much. I would say it's not played up that much, only in a couple scenes. But when she like realizes that everything is, nothing matters, and also she's had experience in a different timeline where she has hot dog fingers and she's in a lesbian relationship with Jamie Lee Curtis. I guess she becomes more accepting of that, but she tells it to her conservative Chinese grandfather, who immediately just accepts it, and it's all a happy thing. And I'm thinking, this guy, canonically in the movie, literally just flew in from China like the day before. I mean, this guy doesn't speak English. I don't think he would be that accepting. And that's why I told Glink, I said, I want to see the Chinese cut of this movie. I wonder if they changed anything for the Chinese release.
Another dimension, another universe for that.
Maybe they changed actors. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe he's just a different cast, Chinese man or something like that.
In my headcanon, he's the grandpa from Multiverse where homosexuality is the norm, so it's not weird to him at all. I think that's all we can say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Everything Everywhere All at Once, Glink, would you recommend it?
Like I said, if you liked Rick and Morty and read it, you're going to have a field day with this one. If you want something more, it's an okay time. It's kind of entertaining. I don't think it's bad.
Yeah, it's got good CGI work. It's got good cinematography and good acting. But that second half pacing, I mean, I like the visuals of a lot of the stuff.
There's not a profound message to be found here, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those like I'm 14 and this is so deep kind of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that if you're 14 and you like deep stuff, then definitely go watch this movie.